have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Well, g'day, how are you folks? Hope you've had a reasonable kind of a weekend and life, the universe and everything isn't treating you too badly. I did promise you that we were going to get Ramona back on to have a chat about common law and all things pertaining to it and how it may be able to assist you at certain times in your life when you don't seem to be able to get assistance through the normal channels. Now, I'm cautioning you, you're not going to get all the answers in this show. For those of you that's followed me for the time I've been doing the Voice of Freedom, you'll understand that I basically started the Voice of Freedom with a Magna Carta 1215 education course with a guy named Fitz. Now, unfortunately, Fitz is no longer part of the team, so to speak, which is my loss, our loss, unfortunately. But for whatever reason, he's chosen to do what he's doing his own way, and God love him for it. However, he isn't the only common law mind in the country, and while Magna Carta 1215 is an exceptionally valuable tool to understand and to appreciate, and more particularly appreciate the differences between it and the changes made by a pope to an English imperial document or an English Empire document, a constitution for the British Empire written by a pope in the Vatican in Italy. Sounds a bit strange, doesn't it? The people wrote constitutions to begin with, and you'd think if the people were writing a constitution, they'd write it in the country they were living in or the Commonwealth they were living in. So anyway, it gets a bit confusing. What's common law? How does it affect me? How can it affect me? Is it actually usable, or do I just get myself in trouble with it? Well, I think we should have a chat with Ramona once again. And I love having her on the show, and common law is something that she's very keen to chat about. Hello, my darling. Lovely to have you back on the show. Thank you for sharing a bit of your weekend with me.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad we made time. So finally, we managed to catch up.
Yep, it's been a battle, hasn't it?
Yeah, I know.
So can I start by asking you, common law, when most of us walk the streets and we're asked, you know, what we know about or how what we are speaking with, and we mention common law, I would wager a large portion of those listening to us don't really understand what common law is. And it's important to know that there are distinctions. So can we start there? Can you explain what common law is and what those distinctions might be?
So when we're talking about common law, we usually refer to the English common law. And that's, again, you can find it in the David John Water Petition of Right, which I'm going to go through a couple of points as well. But when you are in the Supreme Court in common law, they are resigning through precedence cases. So it's not really that English common law with the remedy.
No.
And
is that more statute law?
More statute law, yeah. So there is in Supreme Court, you got common law jurisdiction and you got equity jurisdiction. And as I've been doing a lot of studies now, I'm going into, we're supposed to go, every single time we are in court, we're supposed to go under equity jurisdiction as a man and woman. And not to mention, because they're dealing with the deceased estate. So your all capital letters name, it's a deceased estate. And they're doing probate, okay, which is a probate fraud if they're not going under equity jurisdiction. Now, I have to remind you, this probate stuff, it's in the last 1 year, I've been doing a lot of studies, not even last year, 1 year, 9 months. That basically every single time you go to court, they're running an administrative court. It's all about the administration, right? And to basically get an even exchange, right, we're supposed to go on equity jurisdiction. Now, there it comes, right, the common law. Where is the harm, loss, or damage, right? Because when you're getting prosecuted, you're supposed to be prosecuted if you cause the harm, loss, or damage. So like example, you were speeding. Okay, now you got a speeding fine, right? So they put you down, if you take it to court, as a criminal. But a criminal should be basically, they should be harm, loss, or damage. Where is the injured party? Where is the victim? Because you were speeding or you parked somewhere, you should have a victim. You should have an injured party. But you don't have one, because they are assuming and presuming, which is the 12th presumption of law. They're assuming that, oh, you were speeding, you could hit, you could hit someone, you could kill someone. Yeah, tomorrow I can be a Spider-Man, and after tomorrow, Superman or whatever. You know what I mean? It's all presumption. And every single court case, when you're going through, it should be harm, loss, or damage, or contract, contract law, right? And that's how it should be. And when you cause any harm, loss, or damage, obviously you need to provide remedy. Unfortunately, that's not happening in no courts. As of this stage, I'm not saying in every single court. We still got some, as I mentioned it last time, we got some good judges, we got some good magistrates, We're not pushing the personage, the barratry, because they want the person, but the person is deceased. It's a deceased estate. And that's when we're talking, it's supposed to go as a probate.
So just explain for those people who don't understand why it's a deceased estate, that if you're called to court, your deceased estate is being administered.
That's right. So when you're actually born, right, you got the number one notice of birth, which is issued by the hospital. That's number one document. That's the live baby born, okay? The second document, your mother is go and register the baby. It's called the birth registration statement. So they go and they need to go to BDM, and you have to do it in 6 weeks, because otherwise, blah, 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 what's going to happen. And that is stamped already, the intimidation, the harassment by the so-called governmental agencies. Then the mother goes and registers the baby. Now, what I'm saying, I had evidence, I went through, so I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so and I'm talking about Australia, by the way. And this is true and correct. And I actually talked to BDM as well, and they confirmed that BDM is birthless marriages. Yes, there is a notice of birth. Yes, there is a birth registration statement. And after, from this due document, they issue the birth certificate. Now, the birth certificate, it's pretty much, it's like your death certificate. Okay, so when they register, it's a trust as well. When they do your birth certificate, they do put you down as lost in the sea. Like if you look up the CESTU Act 1666, or Section 1 and Section 4. Section 4 is actually if the man or the woman comes and proves that they are dead, they're coming back live. You got 7 years to claim it back, by the way, but you can claim it back after that as well, that you're coming back live. After 7 years, because you're not claiming back, they treat you as you're dead, you're lost in the sea. So, and this is the reason when you go to the court, you can see you going to a ship. So it's everything is shipping, because the birth certificate is the birth manifest. The ship is the woman birthing, the canal, the word of the state, and all that stuff. So it's all the synonyms. And if anyone of you watching Jordan Maxwell, he goes really into the admiralty law, the all capital letters, and he's been doing it for years and years. He just died 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I can't remember. He done a lot of great lectures, very simple way he explains it. But basically your birth certificate is a deceased estate. Now, I'm going to send you a couple of documents that you can actually upload to your website. And especially in New South Wales, we got the BDM birthless marriages content review, 3 pages. And it is in the executive summary that your birth certificate is actually to discharge payments with the government or private sectors. All right. So it's in their paperwork. Okay. It's a 3 pages. I'm going to send it to you. So I'm going to write down what I'm going to send it to you so you can put it up in your website. So BDM, an executive summary. And even I got a letter from Scott Johnson. He put it on a cancelled ABN. Scott Johnson is Revenue New South Wales CEO. Put it on cancelled ABN, which means cannot go on not published in the public record.
Yep.
And he actually admitted that you can discharge your payment by knowing your rights and with this notice. Okay. So, and there are men and women who are using bill of exchange, and it's actually accepted. Same lawyers as well using it in the country, and they've been accepted. Okay.
Right.
So now, and then this comes again, the indenture trustee, because when you got spare in Queensland, Revenue New South Wales, in New South Wales, right? These guys got an indenture trustee when you pay by BOE, bill of exchange, or promissory notes. Now, most of the times, this company, they don't want to endorse their bill of exchange. So they either just put it aside or securitize or whatever, what they do with that. Now, indenture trustee comes with the fiduciary duty. If you actually go to the indenture trustee, they need to make sure that this is getting endorsed. Okay. Same with the banks, all the banks, and another one, very famous one, which I'm going to mention. And again, this information in the last couple of weeks, I've been studying this one. Perpetual Trustee Limited, PTY Ltd, who is actually the indenture trustee for the Commonwealth Bank. So like example, if you got loan, mortgage, whatever you're dealing with them, it's a good one to always, especially with mortgage fraud, loans, credit cards, BOE, bill of exchange, promissory notes. You need to figure out who is the indenture trustee, because they got fiduciary duty. We're back to the fiduciary duty again. We need to make sure that the bank actually does their job. And then it goes,
I know people who have done this, particularly with the Commonwealth Bank, as it turns out. And the bank, after some months of hesitation or no reply, have pushed back and said they won't accept it. Now, is that because there is a failure in the process of delivering it, or is there some wriggle room in whether or not they have to accept it?
Well, they should accept it because everything is already paid. Okay, when they even send the bill, it's already paid from your Sukivi trust. Okay, it's already done. We cannot pay debt with debt. Okay, that's another one. Debt is a perpetual as well. And if you go back, yep.
Can I just? So it's already been paid.
Yep.
Now, how do people prove that this has already been paid by the trust? Because the government officials that we're dealing with behind the counter have no idea and no access to any bank accounts. Does the SESQV trust payment go into the same, let's call it local council account, if you're looking for rates or, any of those sorts of things that can be claimed through the SESQV trust? How do we, basically I'm asking, how do we follow the money?
Okay, so I got someone who used to be a public servant. Okay, and it was very interesting how the Secretary Treasury actually allocated money for all different areas, and this money, after a few discussion, it's actually ended up that it's all came from the People's Trust. Everyone's got a Sukivi trust because the Secretary Treasury, who looks after all the money comes in and all that stuff and how they're allocating. Because the GDP would not actually operate if they would not trade or birth certificate. So the reason why they're making actually money, it's all connected to the birth certificate, right?
Yes.
Now, how you gonna trade it down? And I'll tell you what, with CBA Bank, I had a few conversations. And it's very interesting because sometimes I go into deep level and I just, go into the birth certificate. And you know what's the interesting thing? They never denied it.
No.
So I talk about in 1933, Commonwealth Bank actually signed a contract with America, going back to 1933 or 1932. And they basically, the CBA Bank, who is holding the Sukivi Trust. And when I say that, they did not deny it. Okay, and I got this from a few resources that it's Commonwealth Bank who is holding the SESQV Trust. Apparently, when you got your birth certificate in the back, one of the number is actually connected to your Sukivi Trust. You get 3 barcodes. And one of them apparently connected to your Sukivi trust. It's in your birth certificate. Now, when you look at your birth certificate, another thing very interesting, down in the bottom, you can't really see that. You need actually put it in front of the light, and it talks about the security. Yeah, it talks about it's a bond paper. It's a security. It's all there. So, as soon as, and that makes sense why they actually pushing men and women to register your baby, because that's how they can actually make money. And that's how right. the system goes. Because if you think about it, like another day I was just sitting and I'm like, okay, you got a driving license. It's around $1 million per year from your estate. You got a bank account, every bank account apparently on $1 million from your estate, plus the insurance, right? And then all the fines, and they're just all about how to do revenue. You have to register your automobile. No, you don't, but they're pushing you, and especially right now, all around the states, the police goes, oh, you cannot travel without with private plates and private registration. Yes, you can, under the Statute of Monopolies Act 1623, Statute of Monopolies Act 1923, you can, because you cannot have just one company that you can register, because that's monopoly. And again, that's again goes against. And if there is a court case from America called, I think, Mother with Edison, that how you have to pay for a license, and they treat you, if you got a license, it's a privilege. No, it's not a privilege. Excuse me, it's all a big BS, right? Because you are entitled. You're not even supposed to pay for that driving license. We're not even supposed to pay for the registration, because as soon as you pay, they're getting paid from their state as well. Then the insurance. Sometimes with fines and all the stuff what we pay, they get paid 2-3 times, or sometimes 4 times. It's just like rape, financial rape, statutory rape, and all
and
these.
It's got to a point now where the commonwealth of the country, which should be paying for things like roads, hospitals, and upkeep and our infrastructure, well, all that's just going into the private corporation, and then they're saying, "Oh, we've got to increase taxes if you want roads, or if you want to have a fast train that crosses the country." Every other major developed country in the world can figure it out, but not in Australia, because, basically, by the look of it, it's our unions are going to put anything between a third and half the cost again on top, just to make sure that things run smoothly. So the corruption is rife everywhere. But people always say, oh, look, if we didn't have a government, what would we do? The garbage wouldn't be picked up, or the roads will fall apart, or the bridges will fall over. Crap. That will not happen, because along with everything else, we will have access to the commonwealth, which will pay for it, and access to our own SSGB trusts, which would be useful. Sorry, didn't mean to go off on a rant.
No. What are you saying? Look, and I always say, and again, I'm going to go back to the petition of right, because it's in the petition of right. We don't want to get rid of the government. What do we want? Just to do your job. And again, we're back to the fiduciary duty letter. And that's the reason, and I know from fact, they're getting heaps of fiduciary duty letter all around in the States, okay? And some of them, they're scrabbling, and how we going to deal with this? We got actually, back in Victoria, started doing investigation with the council fraud, and they're actually asking people to do complaint. We got the anti-slavery commissioner here in New South Wales, who is actually asking feedback from people, because I know a lot of people have been complaining to the anti-slavery commissioner what's happening in the courts. Next week, 27, anyone who is in Melbourne or you are in Victoria, I strongly suggest you to go and book in for the 27th of March, Courts in Danger. I'm going to send you the link as well, Courts in Danger. And you can book in. It's going to be only for 1 hour. I'm just writing down what I need to send you, because otherwise I'm going to forget. Courts in Danger. So you can go for that. It's going to be publicly a justice, from Queensland. I can't remember his name. One of my friends wasn't impressed about him that he's going to do it. Anyway, and the courts are in danger. Yeah, fiduciary duty letter. And I strongly suggest to men and women, keep sending this fiduciary duty letter. Send it at least 4 times, then send it to your police station, send it to your council, send it to whatever.
These are the list of email addresses that you should be sending it to. Yeah. And then, of course, anything in red is what you change. Yeah. But this fiduciary duty letter is available at vofhq.com. our main page. It's very easy to see. If you, I shrink that back up and go up, you'll see that the corruption whistleblower is at the top of the page. If you click on that link, you will find, as I'll show you, our community notice, or community orders, the People's Court Grand Jury Indictment document, which you can download there, the jury participation form, which you can also download. And if you keep scrolling down, you will find the fiduciary duty notices and the notice itself, which you can copy out and change all of those red portions to something that more suits you and today's date. Can we just explain the file number in the fiduciary duty documents so
sure.
people understand how important that works, please, Mona?
So the file number, let's see, okay, as you got my name now, Mona Pamela, so it's going to be MP, so it's going to be your initial and the date. So if you're going to do it today, 23/03/2025. So it's going to be MP, your initial. If you got middle name, then it's obviously going to be your middle name initial. So it's going to be the 2 or 3 or 4, depending how many names you got.
Yep.
And then the date, 23/03/2025, that's going to be your file number. That's going to stay. You're not going to change that file number, and you can always send it out. Even after you send it out, I usually say, even if you send it out first time, even if you got a court case, you're more than welcome to use the same and just forward it to your, whatever court you are going to. Another thing which I was going to mention with the fiduciary duty letter, I have some men and women actually filing it as an evidence, the corruption whistleblower newspaper. And you can do that. You got every right to do that and take it to every single court case, give it to the magistrate, give it to the prosecutor, serve it to the police officer. We're going to have an affidavit soon, which I'm just putting it together, and you can put it down as an evidence. So if it's affidavit, then you're going to have the annexure of the newspaper. And it's very interesting because I know a couple of men and women who has done it, including me. And I'll tell you what, it's gives them a very interesting impression and how they're reacting. But yeah, definitely the corruption whistleblower. It's the newspaper, first edition, second and third, and the fourth one is coming out next week. I strongly suggested to give it to your lovely magistrate that you're going to deal with before you start, or even just file it or send it to the chief magistrate, Michael Allen, if you're in New South Wales. Obviously, look it up whatever state you are. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, like in New South Wales, we still got Andrew Scott Bell. I'm sure he's going to love it, to receive it. Even your Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in Queensland or Victoria, whatever state you are. And just keep sending them a register post or send it by email. I know the guys we've been talking about to have opportunity to actually you can download it in PDF and for a couple of bucks. And the guys are working on it because I know a lot of men and women is actually planning to do that. File it with your affidavit as an evidence. Even if you do an affidavit, you still can do and attach the corruption whistleblower in Exhibit 1 or Exhibit 2 or an annexure. And it's definitely going to put them a big pressure because that corruption whistleblower is true and facts and evidence. And yes, the corruption is huge. It's huge. And honestly, I'm on the stage now. I'm pretty much, I lost my faith in the judicial system pretty much completely. I still respect a couple of magistrates, but what I just seen last week in the Supreme Court of New South Wales, this is another thing. Fraud, forging documents, and acting as executor des tort, and not following the due process. And I got one of my favorite guy who is involved again, and it's just like I'm wondering what ICAC's gonna do. But the New South Wales government and the justice system is just like collusion on the highest level. When lawyers get involved, the cases just get stacked up completely. With all due respect, I know there's still some good lawyers, okay, so with all due respect, but when these guys who are involved, lawyers practicing without law practicing certificate, colluding, forging documents in front of your eyes. You see that it's all forged documents and they're relying on, including ESIC. It's just like,
Wow.
it's like you can't
How
make
do
this
they
shit
how
up.
do they expect to get away with that, Mona?
I don't. They started in one of the cases. I know they started in 2020, another one in 2021, another one started in 2022. And it just, I don't even know how they were thinking that they're gonna go through. They forging document, forging signature, using a signature, copy pasting a signature, and going through with all that administration and doing it behind your back, and judges, magistrates acting an executor decentor. And now I know a lot of men and women, and I strongly suggest you, whatever state you are, magistrates court, we got huge issues. Okay, the judges up in the Supreme Court, they are okay, all right. When I say okay, especially if they get a lot of fiduciary duty letter and etc., they are definitely doing their best, but they still remember lawyers are pushing, and you got up in the top pushing. When magistrates court, they're really pushing slavery. Now, how can you get the magistrate? Do your research and have a look at their background. Have they worked as a police prosecutor? If they did, that's a huge conflict of interest. That's already fiduciary duty breached. You need to recuse yourself. You cannot work on the case. And we got heaps of magistrates, especially in New South Wales, who used to work for the DPP, police prosecution or solicitor, right? Which is conflict of interest straight away. You cannot deal with that case. You must recuse yourself, or you're going to dismiss this case. And that's when is the fiduciary duty letter comes important. Not to mention, you need to have it, find that instrument, whatever, do your research about that magistrate, because we've been using this now lately, and it's absolutely amazing how much information comes out. I don't even know how these magistrates are actually ruling, and they're acting an executor decentor, right? They're claiming
Explain to people what that means.
So executor decentor, remember the 12 presumption of law. I'm going to send you a 12 presumption of law rebuttal, okay?
Beautiful.
And you can put it up on your page. Now,
Thank
12
you so
presumption of law, you're welcome. Everything when you go to court, it goes by assumption and presumption, okay? There's a 12th one. They're assuming that you are a trustee, right? But actually you are the executive beneficiary, and you're claiming that I'm the executive beneficiary. Then what they do, they just railroad you, right? Now that's executor decentor. That's a fraudulent trustee. Okay, that's breach of trust. That is treason. That is spiritual harm. So they're causing you spiritual harm. Now, I strongly suggest you another thing, okay? And again, I'm talking about experience. I'm not going to say it's going to work, okay? I've been, doing a lot of tests here and there. Sending instruction letter before you go to court. Who you are and what do you want? Like, this is my wish, my will, my pleasure. You never say I like, because you lose the beneficiary status. This is my wish, my will, my pleasure, right? And you go in as executive beneficiary. They don't like it, because remember, Fruit from the Poisonous Tree, I'm going to send it to you as well, uploaded, Fruit of the Poisonous Tree. That book actually clearly explains, because that was written a long time ago. If men and women comes and, they're talking about the Sukivi trust, we're just going to play the game. They are either mentally not okay, or they got some issues. They're talking rubbish, blah, blah, blah. And magistrates are still using this. Like, I had a magistrate, right, in Sutherland Court. And he turns around, I never heard about the Sestuiki Act 1666. And I started laughing. I was like, I didn't say anything, but I know 3 weeks before, he almost arrested one of my friends and putting into jail for contempt of court because using the Sestuiki Act and acting an executive beneficiary. Right. And I just started laughing and asking the solicitor, have you heard about the Sestuiki Act 1666? This goes back 2-3 years ago in Sutherland Court. And I was just like, it made me laugh. And I'm like, my God. Like, are you serious? Like, how long have you been sitting as a magistrate? So
it goes to show just how corrupt the system is, isn't it? And they'll both face a lie.
Very corrupt. Like, honestly, I'm just sometimes, even ANZ Bank, ANZ Bank is getting sued, and they're still pushing and trying to, take away properties from people when they are actually forging documents. But most of the times with mortgage fraud, most of the times they're forging the documents. You know, they can't even produce all the documents when you're asking them. That's same with CBA Bank, NEB, Westpac. Westpac is another one. You know, then they're using all these lawyers, third-party interlopers, because anytime anyone taking it to court, right, counsel or whatever, and if they got a lawyer, that's a malicious intent. They are a third-party interloper. You never consented for third-party interloper. That's already malicious. That's a malicious civil or commercial criminal prosecution, criminal or civil, but it's a commercial. Because the third-party interlopers, they always take a third party, so they don't take the commercial liability. Even when they're raiding your bank account, it's not the bank. They got a third-party interloper who raiding your bank account, so the bank is not taking responsibility, which I just found it out another day. Then again, there is this companies using this, you know, example, Credit Corp, right? CBA Bank. Okay, CBA Bank, if you're owning any debt, they use Credit Corp. Guess what? When my bank account got raided, right? Credit Corp's got this legal force and whatever, what is another company. And who was it? There was, again, collusion. Not Credit Corp, but one of his not parent company, because Credit Corp is a parent company, and under that you got the son, daughter company, whatever you want to call it. And they raided my bank account. Oh, there's no conflict of interest. You know, then you go, it's just, and collusion. So every single angle, when you start doing investigation in these guys, you're just going to see collusion here. Ofco is colluding with the banks because Ofco CEO David Loca is actually connected to JP Morgan. JP Morgan is owning the 99% of the mortgages, right? Again, conflict of interest. Ofco, I'm not going to go against the bank. Really? So what is your job? You got a fiduciary duty to the customer, to the client, or we cannot do it. Now, of course, I think I heard about it 2 or 3 times in the last couple of weeks. Ofco, I can't go against the bank. Oh, yeah, because we're colluding again. So where's the fiduciary duty upheld from the bank side, from the Ofco? There's no trust. They're breaching trust. And another thing, they're breaching trust. They're causing spiritual harm for men and women, okay? They don't like when you use that. And when they're breaching trust, that's treason. And what is treason? Is death penalty. Right? If you use the Federal Crimes Act 1914, Section 24AA. And yes, they're sitting in treason. And I'm sorry to say that. Yes, I've been sending out the timesheet of the treason to this so-called lovely public servants. I said plenty fiduciary duty. I had enough. I'm serving you on a judicial notice of malfeasance, because if you still going ahead and you're breaching your fiduciary duty, you are either incompetent in your job, darling, or you're sitting in malfeasance. I'll let you to decide. I know you are sitting in malfeasance, but that's a different story. You know, then you can put the bar grievance. And of course they don't like it, but, you know, the problem is, you know, most of the lawyers, they lie down to their teeth, and it's all about money, you know, make money, the securities. And when they're doing all these court cases, it's all about the securities. It's not about the justice. They're doing all these interlocutory cases just to rape this thing, more financial rape.
We'll drop 15 charges just so you plead guilty to one, and we can fine you and get some money in the account.
Oh, yes. Yes. Instead of like go under equity, where's the harm, loss, or damage? You are dealing with the deceased estate. Okay, I'm the beneficiary. I instruct you what to do, and just do your job. You're still going to get paid in the end of the day. Yeah, sorry, you're not going to do the double dipping and the triple dipping. Yes, that's right. But hey, under equity jurisdiction, everyone must come under clean hands. Now, this is where the problems start, because how many lawyers and baristas and solicitors can come to the table under equity with clean hands? This is where the big problems start. You know, and I know the Law Society of New South Wales has been getting a lot of complaints, and suddenly they're doing some changes in the complaint system. Now they actually started doing that they cannot have lawyers practicing without law practicing certificate in state of New South Wales. Well, they done it with me for 6 months. Right. And how many times I ask? How many times? How many emails I sent to the Law Society of New South Wales? I think they can over 50. I think I send them over 50. Right? So this is what I'm saying, like, and you still need to keep going and just have a big smile on your face, send them love, you know, send them the lovely treason document of fiduciary duty, whatever. I'll send you the timesheet of the treason, which is from Dick Yardley as well. Another beautiful document, only 7 pages, and you transfer the treason. You can send it to courts, councils, whatever. Serve them all, and send them with a big love heart, love and light. I transferred the treason up to you now. Not that you got the knowledge, it's up to you what you do. Because they're committing breach of trust. So this is what's happening in the court. And we need to start learning how we're turning the courts of administration to equity. Every single court case must go under equity. Otherwise, they're sitting in probate, fraud, and tort fees. Okay?
And most people won't understand what an equity court means, because for some, it'll be the first time they've ever heard those two words put together. So explain, I know you mentioned it earlier, but let's just clear that up one more time.
Yeah, so probate court is basically, when they call you to court, they actually want the person, they're calling the birth certificate, which is a deceased estate. Now, and we are back to the executor decentor, because when they're dealing, how they plead guilty or plead not guilty, they're administering the estate, okay?
Yeah.
And they are acting an executor decentor every single time. So you think about it, tomorrow courts are open, right? Let's see, they got 100 court cases, right? How many of them gonna go? You're not the person, you're free to go. They might dismiss the case. They're still balancing the book, which I don't care, but just leave the men and women alone, right?
Yep.
And I know some men and women actually, when they dismiss the case, and because they're dealing with the deceased estate, right? And you are actually live. You coming, have used the Suki Act 1666, which I'm going to send you as well, so you can actually upload it, the 1666 Act.
Sure.
When you go and you claim that you are not the person, right? When we're talking about, again, equity jurisdiction, everyone is equal, right? Because when you go to court these days, the magistrate or judge sitting up there, they feel like I'm above the law. No one is above the law. Color of the law, it's a different story. It goes back to the 12 presumption of law, which I'm strongly suggest you every single time you go to court case, know the 12 presumption of law in and out, have your fiduciary duty letter, do the instruction letter, and just remember, because they're dealing with the birth certificate, that the estate, it has to go under probate court. Otherwise, and that's when you go under equity jurisdiction. They're dealing with the deceased estate. If you haven't caused any harm, loss, or damage, you shouldn't be in that courtroom. And plus, if you've done a contract, again, you need to honor your contract unless there is a breach of contract, right? So you basically, that's why it's either contract, deed of assignment, or you go under caused harm, loss, or damage, right? So deed of assignment, again, they're not going to usually disclose it. And that's what the lawyers do. They do the deeds behind between the counsel and the lawyers. You don't get full disclosure. You're supposed to have the deed of assignment. I had one of the assessor or whatever lawyer, can't remember. Oh, there is no deed of assignment. That's a rubbish lie. Okay? Excuse my language. They do the deeds because usually the deeds, it's everything signed in the back. And they're not giving you full disclosure. So that's where is the problem start. Every single court case, right? Where's the harm, loss, or damage? Where is the injured party? Where is the victim? Do we have a breach of contract? There's 8 elements of the contract. Was that contract valid, or it was an unconscionable, like a mortgage fraud? It's an unconscionable contract. If you go under equity jurisdiction, equity does not aid the unconscionable contract, doesn't support them, because that's a fraudulent contract, right? So equity, it means you always come with clean hands. Now, the problem is, in the system right now, no one is coming with clean hands who are working for the state. So they're getting this innocent men and women, oh, you were speeding, okay. Yeah, you were speeding 130 kilometers or whatever. Not to mention, under the imperial measurements, you didn't even go over the speed limit. Because that's speed hour. So the metric measurement was introduced unlawfully. We never had the referendum. So we got these treasonous political parties. We have whatever coming up, the election. They were treasonous. They're political parties. They're not working for us. They're working for the corporation. And they're saying, oh, yeah, we're going to do this for you. Bullshit. They're all promising all that, all that stuff. Then they come to that and they suddenly forget. It's all bloody politics. But anyway, with all due respect, it's like I had a few times I've been asked to work for, as a politician. And I say, when you're going to work for the people, then you call me. I'm into that. For the people, not for the foreign agency. When you work for the people, you're happy to participate. Okay. But not when you're working for a foreign agent. And, it's ridiculous what they're doing. And not to mention, and the thing is, I'm blaming the politicians who dismiss what's going on. Okay, because they created, the political parties created back in, and Gulf Hitler and all that stuff. And they've been doing it from 1966. So now suddenly COVID clicked in and we got men and women, and God bless you, various, wherever you are, and you've been standing up. And now some judges and magistrates, they're getting intimidated by us. Really? You've been doing it from 1966 and we just had enough. We want equity. Yep. When you drag me to that court, you're making $150,000 in a magistrate court. How about my payment? If I haven't caused any harm, loss, or damage, and we are under probate and we are under deceased. Yeah. So
makes perfect common sense.
Exactly. Common sense. It's common sense and logical, So it's just basically,
and when people begin to learn about this, I find it happened with me, and others have described a similar feeling, that it resonates. When you understand how the process works, it feels like a natural process to you. So a lot of that anxiety of having to go to court is alleviated because there isn't any need for it. So people can really help their anxiety with that sort of thing, particularly by learning to understand what I guess ocean we're playing in when it comes into the court, and how you can stand on the edge of it and say, no, I'm over here on the land. And that's a very important distinction to make.
Yes, absolutely. And knowing who you are. Look, in the end of the day, and it's very sad what I'm going to say now, most of the magistrates, I don't have respect. I do not have respect because you're sitting in treason, you're sitting in fraud, you're breaching trust, you're pushing slavery, you're cross-vesting, apprehended bias, they're committing apprehended bias, they are breaching their code of conduct. Okay, every single state, they got a code of conduct, which I'm going to talk about in a second, about judicial complaint and how important is the judicial complaint. Every single time you go to court, obviously you need to know who you are, do your 12 presumption of law, make sure that magistrate not going to perform as an executor des tort, okay? Because that's what's happened most of the times. I plead guilty behalf of you. Oh, you plead no, you say no plea. Oh, I take it as presumption that you plead not guilty. Well, he just practices a lawyer. I never asked her or him to be my lawyer, and I never gave her the power of attorney or him to do plead not guilty. That's straight away. She breached her code of conduct. She acted as a power of attorney. She practicing law from the bench. She cannot act as a magistrate anymore. That's when you need to do your judicial complaint, because already she breached the code of conduct. She wasn't impartial, and because they're supposed to be impartial, they're supposed to be fair, they're supposed to listen, but they don't. Some of the magistrates, I can name a few here in New South Wales, they just railroad you, don't listen. It's just, I don't even know why you even did that. Why are you even calling people to the court? What's the point to call someone to the court if you not let them to talk? What's the point to have people in court when you got evidence about the fraud and they're ignoring it? Is that a fair trial? No, it's not. Is it a probate fraud? Hell, it is. Are they sitting in treason? Oh, 100%, but not just in treason on the highest level. Example, I can tell you, Emma Kerr and Michael MCT registrar in Sydney Civil Registry. They're very famous about how to railroad people, and completely ignored. And they're striking at fraudulent documents, backdated contract, which is evidence. What does that one tell you? That's a huge collusion. We're supporting the fraud. Oh, come to a court because we give you justice. Oh, really? When you're striking at fraud, and you're telling me that you're going to give justice? Oh, God, please. No. So,
and if you go into the court expecting justice, you're more of a fool than they are. However, you can go in with tools, knowledge, a lot of which you can provide, Mona, that will protect you from this if you utilize it in the correct way. And as you've said in a couple of things that you've said today, words are important. You must use the correct language.
Yes, because they speak legalese. Now, this is another thing, and there was in a rule of law, I don't know if I'm going to find that YouTube link, but there was a lady from the rule of law education website, and she said, when the police stop you, it's like you're speaking Chinese. They're speaking Chinese, sorry. So you're speaking English, they speak Chinese. When you go to court, do you understand? I'm not standing under your system. Do you comprehend, right? So they speak a different language because they speak legalese, right? We're supposed to get a language performance. Now you ask the judge or the magistrate, where's the language performance? Because you speak in legalese. I don't speak legalese. I speak simple English. Where is the interpreter? Okay, the Black's Law Dictionary, or are we using the Black's Law Dictionary, or are we using the King James Bible 1611? Now, and this is where it comes important, and I cannot say that enough. Again, I'm talking about my experience because I've done judicial complaints at least 10 in New South Wales, 1 in Queensland. So far 11 in the last couple of years. Judicial complaint is important because that's when the magistrate, do cross-vesting, they have apprehended bias, they're not being impartial, they don't give you a fair trial, they're practicing law from the bench, or they're doing breaching the trust, or they're sitting in malfeasance, or they're pushing personage battery, or they're sitting in probate fraud, right? Because they're administering their estate without your consent, they're acting an executor des tort, and you're under the presumption of law. Look it up on every single state. What is their code of conduct as a magistrate or judge? Because if they're breaching that, you got a duty of care, and it is your fiduciary to lodge a judicial complaint. In New South Wales, we got a form, which I can send it to you. In Queensland, and I think in Victoria, you have to send an email. You need to go on the website, but I know in Queensland, you send an email to the chief magistrate. So if you're in a magistrate court, chief magistrate, and send it to the court as well. If you are in the Supreme Court, then you send it to... This is judicial complaint. I'm not talking about judicial review. Judicial review, when you take the magistrate or the prosecutor or the judge, you take it to the Supreme Court, okay, for for a prosecution. Okay, that's judicial review. I'm talking about judicial complaint. Now, again, I've seen that a few times when I've done judicial complaint and I went back as a court observer, that magistrate, and I had two already, performed completely differently. And I was a witness for another cases, and one got discharged, another one got dismissed. And that's the reason judicial complaint is crucial, because when you go back again, they cannot do the same mistake again. When you go as a court observer, and again, if they get more than 3, their insurance and their job becomes in jeopardy in 1 year. 3 complaints, and same with the lawyers, because it goes to the fidelity fund and all that stuff, the insurance, because if they're getting too many complaints, then their job become in jeopardy. So, and that's the reason, basically, judicial complaint, it is crucial, and it's very important that, men and women do the judicial complaint, look it up, their code of conduct, what they have done wrong. Because they're supposed to be impartial, they're supposed to be fair, they're not supposed to pervert the course of justice, they're supposed to hold up the rule of law, they're not supposed to work under presumption, they're not supposed to be an executor des tort, which I explained as well, and so on and so on. And cross-vesting, they're not lawful magistrates anyway. It was the 14th of February 1966. If you've done your petition of right, you know that there is no lawful magistrate, there's no lawful judge in this country, and everything works by consent. In a magistrate's court, you should have a consent order that you consent for that whole thing. Why we don't have it? If we have it in the Supreme Court, why they don't have it in the magistrate? Everything is consent. And what they do, they just completely ignore it. That's slavery. That's modern slavery. You're not supposed to do it. Where's the fair trial? I don't have to participate in your fraudulent activity and in your treason. Thank you very much. Stop forcing people to basically go and do things that they don't want to do, because that's modern slavery. Ordering cost orders and so on and so on. It's 25 years jail time for the solicitor and a magistrate. You cannot just go and order that they have to do. We're not slaves, okay? And they're dealing again with the deceased estate, and they want you to be that person. You cannot be the person, because person is a trust, okay?
Yes.
You are the living being with your proper name, okay? But this is again pushing slavery. They want you to be the person, the personage, the barratry, and the 135 bar grievance. They're sitting in security fraud and tax evasion and organized crime and RICO participants. They like this one when you say RICO, political corruption. You know how they're colluding. RICO, it's just who is in the zoo and who's pumping the neighbor's dog, right? When you go to
there's a bit of neighbor dog pumping going on, I think.
I think there's a lot of pumping going on for sure. In a lot of court cases, who is who and who knows who and how you connected in out there, and do you know this and do you know this, and it's interesting.
Absolutely.
And when you start doing investigation, and I got a couple of cases that I've been watching, and I'm like, I don't even know how these guys are doing, and they're not even afraid that they're gonna be exposed.
Yeah, that's the sad thing.
It's madhouse.
We're going to run short in this show, but next time we chat, and we might try and make this a regular weekend thing and see if we can make this happen. I know there is a lot of interest from people in understanding and potentially putting together a petition of right for themselves. So before we leave today, could you just explain, what the petition of right is, what it does for people, so that they might be able to consider if next week we get together and start talking about the petition of right, they might like to join us and figure out for themselves whether it's something they would like to follow through with.
Yep. So the David John Water Petition of Right is basically, it's a prima facie evidence and forensic document, which means there's no governmental agency can rebut it. They cannot. Okay, they cannot rebut it in evidence, and when you use it and when you've done it, you basically become a British subject, private person, protected person. So depend if you're born here or if you're born not in a Commonwealth country, then you become a protected person, which means when you're a British subject, the statutory law doesn't apply to you, okay? And that's when you challenge taxation. Taxation is voluntary, because when you're a British subject, again, with the POR and affidavit, it's easier to challenge as well. They cannot put you under mental health, okay, when you done your petition of right, and they cannot jail you, okay, because again, it's in the petition of right. We don't have lawful magistrates. We don't have lawful judges. They cannot even supposed to issue any fines. This is where they don't have any authority to issue fines, to jail you, to put you under mental health and all this stuff. And that's all in the 119 pages petition of right. So I'm going to send that one to you as well. And I'll send you the link on YouTube, because I do talk about on YouTube about the 119 pages document as well, and why it is important. And we have a lot of men and women doing it. And when you put down this petition of right, this is the beauty. Obviously, you need to stand on it. You need to comprehend the paperwork, because 50% is always your paperwork. 50% is your knowledge and standing. And I can tell you that I've seen a lot of men and women who's done the petition of right, including me, going back a lot of years ago. I've been tested. So make sure I comprehend it. What is common law? And it talks about the English common law. If you cause any harm, loss, or damage, you need to provide remedy, right?
Yep.
Cause no harm, loss, or damage, live by the the 10 commandments, common sense, and principles, the 10 commandments principles. So and David John Water is still alive, and I just had I've been talking to him quite often. I love that man. I managed to meet with him 2 years ago, and wonderful. I've been telling him, thank you, that we got a lot of men and women doing it, and that was his pretty much his dream back in 2020. He wanted that the petition of right goes out and reach a lot of men and women. So when we had a lot of men and women doing the petition of right, it makes me happy, because I know that's David's dream, because what he has done for us, it's amazing. And I'm so grateful and thankful, because I think here in the land of Commonwealth of Australia. We're very blessed what David has done. And even sometimes I got people, but he didn't succeed in court. Yes, but in the meantime, they couldn't order him to pay any fees, So court fees and stuff like that. And he's done a couple of court cases as well, in example in page 85, where Peter White was the judge back in 2006. And this is very important court case when it comes to judges. And that was the judge said, how can an unelected judge decide the law is a good law or a bad law? And Mr. Waters said, I'll leave it up to your honor. And then Peter White said, Soviet Russia would be proud of these laws. So it is in page 85 of the David John Water Petition of Right, and it's there. And the judge was made retired 3 weeks later.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
So and this is what's happening. And if someone even in the judges, and look, some of the judges and magistrates, I know from fact they've been pushed from the bottom, especially if you got lawyers, solicitors involved, they are pushed from there as well, because depend which club they belong to. And I probably mentioned that before, that how the prosecutor actually fired one of the magistrates because that case got dismissed and the prosecutor wasn't happy. And that magistrate was I think he was put in mental health or was made retired a couple of years ago in Queensland, 3 weeks later. So, and this is what's happening. And that's the reason, again, I'm back, fiduciary duty letter, instruction letter, knowing where you are, having the petition of right. If you're challenging the whole system, I always say you must have it. You must have it because it's a basic protection, okay? It's not going to get access to your trust, okay? But it's a basic protection that you become protected, you become a British subject, and you're standing on that part. Obviously, you need to comprehend your paperwork. You need to say, it's not like you just do the paperwork. You need to stand on it. You need to comprehend it. It's a prima facie evidence. You put it down as an evidence, okay? And they cannot rebut it. They cannot rebut it.
You have to be able to present it.
Yes.
You have to be able to present it.
And you need to comprehend it, which is very, very important.
Because if you can't comprehend it, you can't present it, and they will rebut it because you will present it incorrectly. Yeah. So don't go off and say, I'll just say these words and nobody can touch me, because it doesn't work like that. Exactly. Well, it kind of does, but you've got to say exactly the right things at exactly the right times. So, Mona, I can't wait to delve into this a little bit deeper with you, and we'll talk and set up a regular time that's good for you, either during the week or over the weekend, and we'll continue rolling with this. Next time, we will discuss the petition of right. The fiduciary duty documents are available through vofhq.com, and I would recommend to everybody go to corruptionwhistleblower.com.au, and if you haven't already read edition 1, 2, or 3, they are available for download on the website. I think they're $2.50. If you want to get them. I've got copies of volume of edition 2, so if you happen to bump into me and I'm anywhere near the bus, I can give you a copy of that. And I believe number 4 is due out in the next couple of weeks. And
next weekend. It's out next weekend.
Beautiful.
Out next weekend.
Beautiful. And they are evidence packages. So there's no better way to describe them. It's not a newspaper, it's an evidence package. So, and let the people decide. Thank you for spending a bit of your day with us. Oh, yeah.
Just one more thing. Sorry, I forgot to say. Anyone who wishes to join the Anti-Corruption Academy Facebook group, okay, I'm going to send you the link as well. More than welcome. Beautiful. They got heaps of instruments, documents uploaded. You can use it as a template, and there's for councils and everything. We got a lot because every week we got a couple of people uploading documents. So you're more than welcome to join. Just make sure you answer the questions, because otherwise you won't be approved. So that's all I wanted to say.
People.
And thank you so much.
G'day to the 2 Desi's and Justin and the rest of the crew. So a fabulous organisation. If you're not part of it and you are interested in common law, the Anti-Corruption Academy Facebook page, absolutely go and join it. 100%. Have a great what's left of your weekend, my dear.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. Love and light, and namaste.
We'll talk.
Enjoy
and
I'll see you soon.
Love you dearly. The lovely Ramona, and she'll be back a regular here on the Voice of Freedom. If you have any questions that you'd like to give her, I see that some popped up in the chat. So if you've got questions that you would like to throw toward Mona or myself or whatever in this regard, then either put them in the chat or send them to carl@vofhq.com, and I'll make sure that Mona gets a copy of those before we talk next, and we'll be able to go through them and answer them for you. There might be some very basic questions that you need answered before you can begin. So if that is the case, we are more than happy to help you understand completely. We're not trying to, there's no shonky shit show here, folks. But there is an awful lot of study and an awful lot of comprehension. I'm not trying to scare you out of doing it. In fact, I'm hoping you're going to find it a challenge, because it will be the challenge of your lifetime to learn how the legal system should work and how we can make it work the way it should. But it can only be done in certain ways. And without that education, you're going to open yourself up to a world of pain. And let's face it, folks, we've got enough pain in this world right now. Be safe. Talk to you again in the next show. Look out for the dickheads on the road.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's ride!